On this episode of Locked On Lightning, the Bolts finish off their Canadian sweep, and they look towards the weekend against the Penguins. All of that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Danker. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Locked On Lightning. Just a reminder, today's episode, you could subscribe, you could hit that notification button, go ahead subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, audio form, wherever. Follow us on our social media pages at L_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Locked On_Lightning on Instagram. Today, we're talking about last night's win in Montreal. The Lightning sweep the season series against the Canadiens. We also take a look at the Hart Trophy race. Nikita Kucherov just continues to just get better and better and better and better. It's just a wild season, as well as wrapping things up against our weekend preview against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So last night was, I don't think anyone should have been surprised about the result of last night's game. 7-4 win, of course, up in Montreal to sweep not only the season series against the Montreal Canadiens, but to sweep the little 2-game road trip up in Canada. Obviously, 2 nights ago, that was a win against Toronto, huge win. And then I said something I never say, ever. If you've been a listener forever on this podcast, you know, as well as anybody, I never guarantee a win, really ever. And last night I said I was more sure than I ever been that this was going to be a game, not only that the Lightning were going to win, but they were going to really dominate. And that couldn't have been closer to the truth. Last night, you know, even though it was a 3-goal margin to wrap things up, let's be honest here. You know, if you have a different goaltender in net for the Lightning, this game's probably not even remotely close. We're probably seeing an 8-2, maybe 8-1 goal margin there. But last night, the thing that I always love about these games, and I always talk about it, is that in games in which really, you know, you don't really, there's not going to be that close of a talent between the two teams. Obviously, we all know the Lightning have been they're one of the most dangerous teams in the NHL now. I think a lot of top teams in the Eastern Conference especially are looking at Tampa Bay and saying, oh, crap, they're back. And that's 100% true. And then you got the Montreal Canadiens, who are just, they're a lottery team once again. And it's always nice to see in those games, because those are the games where things could kind of just be all over the place for the better team. You're getting kind of, you know, you might be getting like, I was honestly expecting to see maybe a goal from like Mitchell Chaffee and maybe even Luke Glendening, you know, the lower tier guys going out there and putting on performances that really we never see. But in this game, I really enjoyed watching Nick Paul scoring 2 goals. It's something about Nick Paul and that third line, seeing them be successful, that really, really warms your heart because obviously we're so close to the playoffs. It's really important that those guys get going, and to see points from Tyler Mott, to see points from and a goal from Mikey Eyssimont, to see, you know, Cirelli get involved as he has over the last couple of games. It's something that is very encouraging for Lightning fans, even in a win against a team that really can't hold a candle to you on the ice. And the thing that I really liked, and I think some Lightning fans may agree with me on this, is that this game was put away relatively quickly. We did go into that first intermission with a 1-goal lead. Lightning come out and score 4 goals in the second, pretty much dominating the second period. And you know, say what you want about that third period. Montreal comes out, outscores the Lightning 2-1 in the third period. the game was pretty much over after the second. Let's be honest here. The Lightning, to a certain, I think, degree, even though it kind of maybe not have looked like it, the Lightning kind of took their foot off the pedal in the third, which, as long as you win, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, that second period was phenomenal from them. They really just let it all out on Montreal. They outshot the Canadiens 20-6 in that second period. And even, this was still, like I said, the Lightning need to go out and still put out good performances, even on nights when a win is almost guaranteed, as it was in this situation. The Lightning really dominated all facets of this game. You're not going to see those numbers, against other top tier teams. You may not see that much of a lopsided effort, but they still went out there and they took care of business, and they did it in the way that they've been doing for the last month or so. The Lightning dominated the faceoff circle, almost 60% success rate in this game, 40% on the power play, two out of 5. I'll take that. Their PK was just as good. Montreal was unsuccessful in any of their 4 chances that they had. The hits, it was measured. I mean, it wasn't a high octane game. It wasn't going to be an intense game. That's not how Montreal plays, and just Tampa Bay is just a bigger team in general. So I didn't really expect there to be much of any type of physicality in this one. The Lightning did a good job of really frustrating Montreal as well, blocking 21 shots. So a lot of good things in this game. Like I said, you saw a lot of good performances around. You still saw all your guys that have been playing phenomenal over the last month continue to play great. Like I said, Nick Paul, 2 goals in this one. Mike Yesmont had a phenomenal goal in the first period to give the Lightning the lead, in which they didn't relinquish until the second. The Yesmont goal is something that I think a lot of Lightning fans aren't surprised about, just because we kind of figure with, and I hope that, maybe this is wishful thinking. Hopefully we see more of this in the playoffs. Is Yesmont, we all know at this point in time what he's got, what he's capable of, the amount of skill that he has that I don't think a lot of people understand that he has, because let's face it, the numbers don't translate to what he has shown us. There's a lot of times that he has not been able to convert on phenomenal chances that he makes for himself, like in this one. I mean, he's just swerving around the goaltender, easy peasy. And that's something that I think is really, I don't think a lot of other teams realize that, Yesmont there's more to his game than just physicality and grit. And I think that's going to play in favor for the Lightning going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Stamkos, another 2-goal game as well. Obviously the last one was an empty netter, but Stamkos, him continuing to score, and especially at this point in his career, like, for example, I thought that we were going to start to see more of that wear and tear that he has experienced over the years kind of start to affect his play. That hasn't been the case really this year. He started out slow, but once this team, like I said, has figured out how to play and what to do as a cohesive unit, I mean, really it's been smooth sailing for him, for Paul, obviously for Kuch. Kuch is just continuing to show everybody that he is a great player, and that he could really much do anything he wants at any point in time, and really just continuing to just pad his argument for being the NHL's top player, which we'll talk about in the second half of this podcast. But still a great performance. I mean, even if it doesn't really have that great shine to it as what the Toronto game had, because it's a lesser team. That's fine, but you know what? A win is a win, and the Lightning get even closer in the standings to Toronto. So right now, as of today, Toronto has 95 points. The Lightning are at 93. Even though there's still that kind of give and back, and Toronto is going to win a couple of games here and there to end the season. I know it. Even though they have definitely a tougher schedule than the Lightning. I still think that, the Lightning, the way they're playing and who they have coming up, it is very possible, other than that last Maple Leaf game, which I think is going to be very important. It could very well determine who is going to be seated where in the playoffs. The Lightning could very well win out the rest of the season at this point. It's very possible, even with the game on Saturday against Pittsburgh, which, another team that is going to give you a hard time. But we'll talk about that a little later on. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about this game. Is it encouraging to continue seeing performances like you saw last night from Nick Paul? Should we expect a performance or more scoring from Mike Yesema, especially in the playoffs? Could he be a playoff hero? We'll definitely address that as we get closer to the playoffs, but let me know in the comments below how you felt about that. So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about another, not another, but more of the Hart Trophy conversation, because, Kucherov, at this point, let's all face it. Let's all really be truthful, okay? If he doesn't win, it's going to be a travesty. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit, but first I want to talk about our first sponsor of today's show, and that is our friends over at Robinhood Retirement. Now, did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you could still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401k. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. So once again, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification button so as soon as the newest episode drops, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us grow. We're not that far away from 1,000 people. Okay? Go ahead. Help us out. And guess what? We're going to be putting out more content as we get ever closer. Or once the playoffs start, we're going to be having updates and more videos. So you definitely don't want to miss out on the extra content. So go ahead, subscribe to our channel while you can. And let me know in the comments below, because I love hearing from all of you. I love hearing the difference of opinions. I very much enjoyed even the interactions, the one-sided interactions that we had from some Red Wings fans, because they beat the Lightning the other night and they were talking trash. And if you're a Lightning fan, you see that, don't let it bother you, because listen, the Red Wings beating the Lightning, that's their Stanley Cup. Okay, that's as good as it's going to get for them for the rest of the season, because now they're not in a playoff spot. They might actually lose out on that second wild card spot, because the Islanders are starting to play better, as well as the Red Wings are starting. They're not consistent. So speaking of consistency, we're talking about none other than Mr. Consistency himself, and that's Nikita Kucherov. I still can't believe that he's having the season that he is having. I thought 2018-19 was like a year that we were never going to see replicated from him, just because it's just one of those things where it's just so great in the moment. 128 points, 87 assists, 41 goals. You don't think that it could get much better than that. Well, at age 30, through 75 games, he has surpassed that. Okay, he has surpassed that. He still has a handful of more games to go to where he could even pad that even more. He's at 43 goals right now, 133 points. What else is there to say? The guy could do it all. The guy continues to do it all. The guy continues to just push this team every single night to wins. I'm not saying that in a way that's derogatory towards everybody else on this team, but you can't sit there and say that that doesn't have a positive effect on these Lightning players, and it makes them better. And if you had somebody else in that spot of Kucherov's, one could make the argument that maybe these players wouldn't be playing as well. But the thing that continues to annoy me as we continue to see the conversation online being had with McKinnon and Kucherov, and don't let anybody fool you. You know, Matthews, he's having a phenomenal season, but it's a 2-horse race out there for the Hart Trophy. Austin Matthews is not anywhere nearly close to sniffing the Hart Trophy. Now, you'll probably get some votes for him to win from Toronto writers and, you know, media, whatever. But, you know, and it's only like the Canadian outlets that are doing this. So if you're a Lightning fan and you see that, don't worry. It's between McKinnon and Matthew and Kucherov. McDavid is an interesting conversation to have because he has really been really been putting up the numbers. It's one of those situations where honestly it kind of worries me when we have the conversation about the Hart Trophy, only because the conversation that's always had every single year with the Hart Trophy, it's always kind of it's never talked about who's going to win it or whatever. It's more so kind of already in the minds of a lot of people already given to Connor McDavid, and it's kind of his award to lose. And I just don't want the writers and the people that vote on this award to kind of view it that way. And that coupled with the fact, let's be honest here, Lightning fans, a lot of hockey writers don't view, for whatever reason, they look at Tampa and they don't really pay attention, regardless of how well Tampa Bay has played, how well Nikita Kucherov has played. For some reason, they just refuse to acknowledge that there's legitimacy to how he's playing. You know, a lot of people, they look at Kuch, and the same case could be made for McKinnon, 100%. That, oh, these guys are only playing well because of what they have around them. I mean, that could be very well said, and for really anybody that's in the conversation for the Hart, for the most part. Even with McDavid, you could even say, well, the only reason why he has these many points, other than the fact of pure talent, is because he really has nothing else around him. And that's an argument that I've been making, not saying that he doesn't deserve it in years past, but that's the argument I've been making for pretty much every year, just to be devil's advocate. But with Nikita Kucherov, the point has been made many times this year on this podcast, on other outlets, that without Kucherov, where is this Lightning team? You know, the Lightning are on the verge of possibly snatching that third spot in the division up, but you take 86 out of the equation, you know, where are the Lightning? I mean, he was the only reason why they were staying afloat in the first 4 months of the season. You know, no Andre Vasilevsky. The defense is playing terrible. Not many of the players on this team were really doing much of anything. I mean, you had your performances from Point, from Paul, from Hagel, but that's not enough to keep this team in the conversation. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand. And that's when I hear certain arguments, whether it be on social media or on TV, especially the Canadian outlets. Clearly, these people aren't paying attention to Lightning. There's no correlation in their minds between his performance and where the Lightning are in the standings. And we had this conversation when I had the guys from Locked On Avalanche on. If you want to go back to that conversation or any of the other conversations we've had with them, go back and listen to that, and then listen to this or watch this or whatever. basically my argument is that the Lightning would be worse off without him, as opposed to where if McKinnon is not playing this well, the Avs would still be probably a little bit higher, because there is a very big drop off from some of the top teams in the West and then the lower tier teams. Whereas the Eastern Conference is just a gauntlet of very competitive teams. And when I look at the Eastern Conference and I think about the Tampa Bay Lightning not having him putting up these numbers, you take away the 133 points. I mean, if you want to slash that in half, I mean, we talked about it on past episodes. Kucherov accounts for basically almost half, if not more than half, of the Lightning's points that they've put up this year. You take away maybe half of that, if you want to, let's say 65, if you have a normal player putting up 65, 70 points. This Lightning team maybe is not even in a playoff spot, where Colorado's probably at least in a wild card. You know, we're at the conversation. We could very well have the conversation that the Lightning are kind of at the bottom almost, where the Devils are, where the Sabres are, kind of where the Penguins are, kind of around that area. And really, we talk about it all the time on this podcast, how Kucherov is really the spoon that stirs the pot here for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He makes everybody better. He even makes Vasilevsky better, because the guys play better in front of him because of Kucherov setting the tone at the top. So let me know in the comments below. I mean, it's one of those races where the more I hear, it could go to anybody in terms of, you know, you're not making the wrong decision between McKinnon or Kucherov. I think you are. Maybe I'm being biased. I just, you know, the guy's having a phenomenal season. He set the record for the most assists since, I believe it was since like 1992 for a winger. He's had the most 3-point games. He's up there in a season. I think he's only behind like Lemieux and McDavid for the most 3-point games or something like that since 1994. And this team is astronomically more worse, or performs worse, without 86 in the lineup. So let me know in the comments below, what is your opinion? I mean, to me, there's really no more conversation to have about it. I mean, he's good. He's phenomenal. This team is completely drastically different without him, without what he is doing. You saw it last night. I mean, every night he is constantly involved. So we'll continue to monitor that. I mean, it's one of those things, like I said, I said at the beginning, if he doesn't win, it's a travesty. As really any, you know, if he ends the season with 140 points and he doesn't win because other people think McKinnon is doing A, B, and C, you know, how many points did he have to score in order to change your mind? That's really where I'm going with it. 170? Who knows? So let me know in the comments below. Where is Kucherov going to finish with? I mean, how many points? I mean, I think the way he's going, and with the amount of games Tampa has left, I mean, 150? I don't think that's a crazy number to throw out there. 150? Let me know. So coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about Saturday's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But first, I want to talk about our last sponsor of today's show, and that is our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So one last time, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the pod. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. And subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You could hit us up on our Twitter page at L_Lightning on Twitter. Or on our Instagram page, LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. If you want to give me a shout out on Twitter, go ahead and do that at DankyDank, DenkyDank. If you want to DM me or you want to tweet to me, whatever the case may be, go ahead. If it's a question, I'll answer on the show, as long as it pertains to Lightning. So we just got done talking about a win against Montreal. We just got done talking about Nikita Kucherov, who, once again, as always, really much, will play a very big part in tomorrow's game against the Penguins, a team that, unless something drastically happens, I think we could close the book on their season. They're at 81 points right now. They're 2 points out of that second spot. I don't know. You have a lot of teams to worry about in front of you to get that last spot. Washington, I don't know how to feel about them. They're just a very strange team. I'm honestly kind of surprised they're still in the conversation. Detroit, I'm actually a little bit disappointed in. I kind of thought that the second spot would have eventually have been their spot to lose. And saying that, would have thought that they would have had it kind of wrapped up and would have been able to fend off other teams, but that hasn't, of course, been the case. But them chasing a wild card spot, I think we could agree, makes Pittsburgh all that more dangerous tomorrow. Now, having said that, you're getting Vasilevsky back. This team is basically at peace of who they are. And I don't see them slowing down at all. Now, I'm not trying to say that this is going to be a lopsided win once again, but it has the potential to be. I look at this Pittsburgh team. I look at what they got going for them, and I don't really see much of a threat on the other side. Now, the Lightning have a chance tomorrow to win the season series. Of course, losing their first matchup in November and then picking up a win in December. Basically take those first two games as you want in context and, file them away. But the only player that kind of worries me when I look at the other side, when I look at this Pittsburgh team, is, of course, Sidney Crosby. At this time in his career, it's still pretty incredible to see him putting up the numbers, 39 goals, 84 points, plus minus of 8. He's still averaging about 20 minutes a night, which is still pretty impressive. But other than that, I just look at kind of this Pittsburgh team is kind of how the Lightning were a couple of months ago, just kind of all going in different directions at once. And the way the Lightning are playing, the way their game is structured now, that is a team that you feast upon, a team that you pick apart, like we saw the other night against Montreal, that you chip away at, and then in the second period you just completely just throw everything at them and see how they handle it. And with Vasilevsky in net, it's not going to take long to really frustrate that other team. And I'm looking at their roster because I honestly haven't watched the Pittsburgh game until at least since December, obviously. They do have good players on this team. I'm not going to completely sit here and crap on Pittsburgh. Obviously, you have Malkin, Michael Bunting. We're all familiar with him. Richard Raquel, Nola Chari, Marcus Peterson, Chris Letang, Eric Carlson, Ryan Graves. And then you have Tristan Jarry in net with Nedeljkovic as the backup. The names are there. The players are there. But like I said, that tells me with a team like this that has kind of just been, I don't know, it's like they're trying to run in quicksand. That tells me that they're not where they want to be mentally as a team. They're not playing as a team consistently. They're kind of not all on the same page. And like I said, I firmly believe the Lightning are going to feast on that. So if I have to throw a prediction out for this game tomorrow, I'm going to say 5-2 Lightning, maybe 6-3 Lightning on a weird bounce that gets by Vasilevsky. But I think, like I've said over the last couple of weeks, we're going to see more of the same from this Lightning team. Probably a couple of power play goals. Very good presence in the face-off circle. I mean, Pittsburgh has the worst PK, one of the worst PKs in the league. So I would imagine, and they just have one of the worst special teams in the league. Actually, I'm sorry, one of the worst power plays in the league. So, even if the Lightning give up a couple of special team opportunities, it's not going to come back to bite you. So, as always, this is the Lightning's game to lose. So let me know in the comments below your predictions for tomorrow's afternoon game. And we'll be back on Friday to talk more about Lightning hockey, recap this game as well. Looking forward to some of the upcoming games on the schedule. So that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.